Alright, welcome back to Zero Cool Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a review of a game called Lara Croft Tomb Raider Anniversary.
I thought I'd lost this.
Now, this is an interesting game because it's a remake, essentially. It's not a remaster, it's a remake of the first game because while though it does follow the story pretty much beat for beat, they did change some things around. They did make the game a whole lot shorter. They did a lot of things differently than the original game. So I would call this a remake. A remaster would have been just simply going through the first game and upgrading the graphics as far as I'm concerned. That's how I discern the two. And then some remakes are just complete subversions of the games they once were. And I try to stay away from those. I think that they have no place in gaming. I don't think that's something that should be done at all, but that's my opinion. So, one of the things that I did like about this game is that it does have a lot better graphics than the first game. I did like the way that they do a sort of a training hall in your own mansion in much the same way that I believe the second and third games did that, where you had a training hall in the mansion. And I find that to be very helpful. Did the first game have that as well? You know what? Maybe the first game had that as well. It's been so many years since I've played it, it's hard to remember. But regardless, as far as a platformer goes, a 3D platformer, I think this is one of the last actual 3D platformers that they made of the Tomb Raider series. The ones that came after this, I can't really call them 3D platformers. They're an amalgamation of different genres to create something that I don't even consider to be Tomb Raider. And, that's a shame, because one of the things about Tomb Raider, especially the first, 3, 4 games? I think 4 games, all the way up to Dark Knight, I think it's called, or Dark Angel, something like that, is that if you memorize the movement and button combinations, you could safely traverse the level without injuring yourself or dying at all. It's just a matter of memorizing what needed to be done for each section. And knowing what button presses needed to be used, movement and button presses, for each section, for each jump that you were getting ready to do, for each movement. And as long as you had that memorized, you weren't going to get hurt. And this game was done in much the same way. You have very specific movement and button presses that will do very specific maneuvers. And if you do those in the proper order and in the proper combination, essentially you could go through this entire game without getting hurt at all. Now there is a couple of exceptions to that where it requires you to drop down from places that will injure you a little bit, but it gives you plenty of health packs, even small health packs, to remedy that entirely without issue. And even in the first game, and in truth, you don't actually have to do that. You can go back the way you came and alleviate the whole idea of harming yourself even a little bit. So, I mean, it's all a matter of what you want. There's faster ways to do things, I guess is a way of putting it. But it might mean that you get hurt a little bit in the process. And, you know, like, you start the game out in your mansion, like I said. And you've learned that the water's been turned off, that they're doing repairs. They're fixing the pool, I believe it is. And you go through the mansion and you can find different artifacts? No, relics. I believe they're relics. One of the two. Little elephants hidden all over the place. You can find those, and you locate the different items that you're supposed to. You need to shut down the security system, and there's lots of different things that you need to do in order to shut down the security system. It's a bunch of puzzles, truly. And that's one of the things that I really liked about this game, is that they did more puzzle combinations than what was in the original game in that respect, combined with your, you know, movement and jump system for the platforming. And the puzzles aren't exactly unique, but when combined with everything else, it creates a unique experience. And then when you finish the mansion area, and you've done everything that you need to do there, which is basically just teaching you how to do the movement system, how to jump and grip and save yourself from falling, because sometimes you just grab on with one arm and you need to be able to grab on with both arms. And it teaches you all these things. It teaches you all the mechanics of the game, truly. And then you are at a hotel, I think. Looks like a hotel anyway. And you get invited to go search for this artifact that you and your father had once been searching for years. And you head off to Peru, just like you did in the original game, to find the first piece of it. And when you're there, you fight the same types of animals, you know, wolves, bats, bears, just like you did in the first game. There's a cutscene at the beginning where you're shooting raptors, and it's implied that there's a T-Rex headed your way by the ground shaking every time it takes a step. So, I mean, it's interesting to say the least. Unique. They created a unique game out of a game that already existed, and provided you with a unique experience for that game and for that story, that for the most part they didn't butcher it. They left the story basically as it was, so that you could experience that same story with a new and you know, slightly altered gameplay that goes with it. And it's truly just slightly altered. There's not a whole lot of mechanics added. There's not any mechanics that are removed as far as I can tell. And the only thing that you do a little differently is how you solve some of the puzzles. The types of things that you gather to solve those puzzles. And of course the puzzles themselves have been changed. It's not the exact same puzzles. I mean, one of the first item puzzles that you get in the original game, I believe, is where you need to find 3 different gears. And then you have to put those gears onto a wall, which opens up essentially floodgates. And that fills up a pond, and it opens the way to the actual temple where you find the first artifact. And of course you gotta fight a guy, once you get out of the cave system, who's trying to stop you from finding the artifact. I don't even know if that's really true. They want you to find the artifact, but then he wants to steal it from you to ensure that his employer, which is also your employer, gets those artifacts. So yeah, it's it's a little bit of an odd story in the first game. But I can remember the first game probably took me 4 years before I actually beat it, because I get frustrated at certain sections and I just put it down for months on end. And then one day I'd pick it up and play it for a few months, and then get frustrated again and put it down, and then pick it up and play it for a few months. So on and so forth until I finally worked my way all the way through it. But nonetheless, it was a very fun game. And I can truly say the same about this one. This one is also a very fun game, even though it's relatively a short game. If you're not reading a walkthrough, it'd probably take you about 10 hours to get through this one. So it's a lot easier than the first game. But if you're sitting there reading a walkthrough, it seems like it takes like 6.5 hours to 7 hours for people to complete it. Okay, so the story of this game is, of course, like I stated, you're hired by a technology company to find a relic. And you travel to Peru to find that relic. You do end up actually fighting the raptors and T-Rex while you're looking for that relic. And it's not the opening of the floodgates that reveals the path under the waterfall. It's the closing of the floodgates that reveals the pathway under the waterfall, which makes a whole lot more sense. But regardless, you find your way into the temple itself as a result. You work your way through the puzzles inside the temple. You open the gates. And eventually you make it to the relic that you're looking for. The Scion, I think it's called. Or at least one piece of it. And before you actually grab it, you go up and you read the writings on the wall. And it tells you about the God King that's sitting there in his throne chair. And he's got a couple of mummified guards standing next to him. And as you're inspecting the king himself, one of the guards comes to life for a second and almost gets you before it falls back down to the ground, apparently dead. But certainly gives you reason to pause and back away. And then when you actually grab the Scion, the king himself wakens and tries to come after you, but gets buried in his temple because it starts to fall apart once that relic is removed. So you make your way out of the temple just to find your employer's henchmen there waiting for you. And you guys have a fight, of course. Eventually you end up having to knock him out because he's not going to take no for an answer, and that's how you get your shotgun. You end up taking his. But he does tell you who one of the other two people that this woman has hired to find the other pieces of the Scion are. And you decide that the best way to locate where this man is to break into the office of the lady who hired you and intended to have you killed. And that's exactly what you do. You use the elevator to get to the roof, and then you bust in through the roof into her office room, and you find where she sent Pierre, which is St. Francis Folly. And of course you travel to Greece to meet with Pierre, shall we say. Fight a few lions along the way. And he challenges you to see which one of you can make it to the Scion first, either him or you. And you begin the puzzles of the folly to find the Scion that's hidden within. Now, Francis has his own idea of what this Scion is, and he thinks that it's one piece that, when combined, is like a great library of information. And his idea is that if he had the wealth of knowledge that would be granted by doing so, he could bring his dead wife back to life. I think that's what he said, or something to that effect. The woman he loves, might have been his wife, maybe not. I don't pay that much attention to these stories, to be honest with you. Just enough to get the idea of what's going on. And, well, you know, when you're distraught, as he obviously is, I guess, even the most insane ideas can seem plausible. Especially when you're looking for an answer that, as far as you know, doesn't exist. And you hope that what you're looking for might give you that answer. It's a pretty old story, to be honest with you. And it's been used many and many a times. But nonetheless, it's part of this story. And as you work your way through the folly, of course, you take in some of the artwork that's around the place, because there is some ancient artwork that's there, as well as some very unique puzzles. This is one of those places that I like because of the unique puzzles that it decides to incorporate. It adds a little bit of variety to the game, truly. It's a shooting puzzle where you shoot different sections of these paintings. I guess that's what they are. And by doing so, you open up different doorways and trapdoors, secret areas, allowing you to access those areas and collect the relics and artifacts within. So it's definitely a more inventive way of creating puzzles within this game. I can't remember. Well, no, I guess there were a few shooting puzzles. They just weren't quite this elaborate, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. So Sir Francis Folly is more of a puzzle and a platformer. You have to go up and down a whole bunch of times and do things in particular orders in order to solve it all. But once you've collected the keys, then you head on into the Colosseum. Now, the Colosseum is not much of a platformer, and the puzzles aren't that difficult. The main danger there are the waves of gorillas and lions that you have to deal with. And once you get through the Colosseum, you enter the Midas Palace, and it's the same thing again. The platforming and puzzles aren't that difficult, but the waves of lions and gorillas are your main danger that you need to deal with. So the game does kind of try to switch up its gameplay a little bit, to have you deal with different aspects of it. And it's pretty generous with its shotgun ammo, knowing that it's giving you waves of enemies to kill. And that part of it I do appreciate, is that it's pretty forgiving with the amount of ammo that it actually makes available for you in those two levels. Now, if you're missing shots and things like that, then that's a whole nother problem. But you can, like, gorillas take 3 shots to take down, lions take 2, and that's assuming that you're right up next to them when you're shooting them. And that's with the shotgun. But you can shoot a gorilla twice and then finish it off with the pistols. A lot of times you'll get a rage charge, so you can finish it off with 1 bullet. And the same thing with the lions, you can shoot them once. Assuming that you don't have like multiple enemies coming after you, and then that makes it a little more difficult. But when it gets down to like the last one, and you got 1 lion left, you can shoot it once with a shotgun and then finish it off with the pistols. It's just a way of conserving ammo, and it's a good way to conserve ammo. I mean, it is forgiving with the amount of shotgun shells that it gives you. But like I said, if you're wasting shots or missing shots, or you're not trying to conserve it, you'll run through your shotgun ammo pretty quick. And the same thing can be said for Uzi ammo later on in the game. While though it seems to give you a lot of ammo, an Uzi goes through ammo very quick in and of itself. So if you're not trying to conserve that ammo and take advantage of the dual pistols, which gives you unlimited ammo, as often as possible, you'll run through your Uzi ammo just as fast as your shotgun ammo. You really got to think about what you're doing when you're using the different ammo types in this game. Because while though it might seem like you have enough when you start, you will soon realize that you don't if you aren't trying to conserve. Alright, so at this point in the game, you've already been introduced to the idea that there are immortal beings that are guarding these pieces of the Scion. But you haven't had to fight any of them. Well, at the Tomb of Taihoan, you actually do have to fight a couple of them. When you get the second piece of the Scion, it's immediately stolen from you, and you chase the guy who stole it outside. And the 2 stone figures come to life. They're like half horse, half creature things, and they can turn you into stone. You use your grappling hook to remove the shields, and then you use the shields to repel that back at them, and then you've got to break them before they turn back into creatures. That's the only way to kill them. You can unload onto them forever, and it'll truly do nothing to them. But when you make it outside before they come to life, you have a conversation with the guy that stole the second piece, and then when they come to life, he throws the second piece to you, thinking that these creatures go after you, and before they do so, they kill him. Well, after you take them down, you get a real vision of the past. and you get some understanding of what happened and why the Scion was split into three pieces to begin with. And it was because among these immortals, there was one of them that was a traitor. And they had used the power of it to do something that they didn't like, or they weren't supposed to do, or was heretical in some way. And through that vision, you also learn that you need to then head to Egypt. And when you get to Egypt, you head to the Temple of Khamun. I'm horrible with these names. I'm probably not even pronouncing it correctly. But regardless, it's a pretty long temple, to say the least. And it's one of the first places in this game that has environmental changes, meaning that you'll get to a certain point in the game where you do something, or in the level I should say, and it changes previous areas of that level pretty drastically. A lot of sand comes into one area, and you've got to now maneuver through that area without falling into the sand mound. So it's a thing that the first game did too, but this one does it to a greater degree, and it looks better the way that this game does it as well. But now you have to fight these immortal monsters on a pretty regular basis from here on out, from this point of the game forward. And some of them are relatively easy to take down. You can just use regular, gunfight battles to do so. While others, there will be a trick to them, a process, let's call it, that needs to be followed in order to defeat them. Otherwise, you can't at all. In much the same way that the horse guys were defeated. Once you figure out what that process is, it's relatively easy to repeat it. The hard part is figuring out what that process is. And a lot of times they do give you hints to it, like with the horse guys, there was a ring on the backside of their shields, and they would show you the backside of their shields every once in a while, giving you the opportunity to grapple hook it. Because it's the same type of ring that you've seen throughout the game at this point, with all the items that you could grapple hook. So, excuse me. It's winter, that's for sure. Yeah, they do try to tell you and show you what to do. It's just a matter of whether or not you can pick up on the clues that they're giving you. So, like I said, it's still a relatively easy game compared to the first one, but they do try to switch it up and make it more fun and give you at least some variety in how you're doing things. Alright, so after you make your way all the way through the Temple of Khamun, the Obelisk of Khamun, and the Sanctuary of the Scion, or the Skion, however you want to pronounce that, you'll get your third piece of the Scion. Now, when you combine the third piece, you learn that one of the three developed a technology that's powered by the Scion itself, and it is designed to turn the world to ash so that the seventh age could come about. Now, when you look at the effects or the things that came about as the start of the seventh age, the process did start a long time ago, and these other two guardians stopped it. She'd completely destroyed Atlantis, which is, I'm guessing, where the actual technology itself was housed. And the creatures that were born as a result were immortal, but seemed to be lacking any real intelligence. And the other two guardians are capable of controlling these creatures, and I would guess that she was as well. So I wouldn't say that the creation of this 7th age, especially the way she was planning on doing it, was going to bring about anything good. And the technology itself truly only had one real purpose, and that was to turn the world to ash. Now, what is ash? Most people think of ash as the leftovers from something that burns, something that has been burned. But if you're just looking at how something looks or appears, ash, if you were to, kind of crush it up into a fine dust to where you couldn't tell what was burned to create it, would just look like gray dust. And that's really what I'm going to talk about right now, is that there is a technology out there that turns most materials into what looks like gray dust. And that technology is microwave technology. And there is a person that you can look up who has done experiments with microwave technology and done this to several different types of material. And his name is John Hutchinson. Now, they did run a very successful smear campaign on this man. And most of the information that you're going to find on him is going to say that he's a charlatan, he's a quack, and that none of the stuff that he claimed did he actually do. And to that I say that that's the smear campaign. That's the lies they want you to believe because they don't want you to understand the reality. The reality is that people like him, in general, not all of them, but most of them, are not very good at keeping things like journals, logs, accurate experimental notes. That's not something that is ingrained within them. What they are good at doing is visualizing something that most of us can't conceptualize, and then trying to see if they can recreate that visualization. And most of the time they do experiments and things to that effect, not for the purpose of creating a new technology to benefit anyone, but just because they enjoy what they're learning and what they're doing, and they get a kick out of it. And you'd be surprised at how many new technologies were created as a result of people doing exactly that. And that's really what he was doing. As a result of that, they confiscated all of his technology. He had a lot of microwave emitters and amplifiers and all sorts of stuff. And they confiscated under the auspice of what he was doing was a danger to himself and others. While at the same time their smear campaign says that nothing he claimed did he ever actually do. Well, if he wasn't capable of doing any of those things with the technology that you confiscated, then why did you confiscate it? But regardless, The governments do that to themselves all the time. They put themselves in a catch-22 where they claim one thing and then run a smear campaign that is the antithesis of what they claim, quite literally. Another thing that he ended up creating, at least a patent on, is what's known today as zero-point batteries, and the Japanese government did buy that patent off of him.
There's nowhere left to go but down.
Basically, what I'm getting at, people, is if this man was a complete quack and nothing that he said or did was ever real, the Japanese would not have purchased that patent off of him. Period. It just would not have happened. But they did purchase it. Now, what they've done with it since then, who knows? But they certainly aren't using it to develop new technologies for the rest of us. Regardless, if you want to understand microwave technology, that's a good place to start. And understand I am an electronics engineer, and I have seen how microwave technology is used to create what we call microchips and CPU processor chips, all of these sorts of things. And the technology that I've seen in these factories is capable of doing things quite similar to the claims that he made. And if you scale that up to a type of weaponry, it would be much more devastating, truly. And it would turn solid material into something that would look like ash, gray dust. Just to give you an idea of the reality of what we're talking about here. So yeah, absolutely give that a look. So after Laura gets all this information, of course, the owner of Natalie Technology shows up, Natalie herself. She steals the Scion from Laura while she's having her vision, and then orders her men to kill her. They fail to do so, and Laura ends up becoming a stowaway on her boat, and then gets out of the boat once the boat's stopped and she doesn't hear people, wandering around anymore. And she finds herself in a cave with a bunch of crates labeled, Natalie Technologies. And this area of the game is called the Natalie's Mines. And they're obviously trying to excavate something in these mines. That's why all the technology's here. That's why all these crates are here. That's why she created a way for her boat to get in and out of here. So, yeah. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the game now. And like I said, it basically follows beat for beat of the original game. It's just that they changed a lot of it up. They simplified a lot of it. They improved the graphics drastically, truly. But they kept the main storyline true to the original storyline. And that's one of the main things that I really liked about this game. Alright, so once you're inside Natalie's mines, eventually you end up facing off against one of Natalie's henchmen. And in order to proceed, you have to kill him. And as you proceed further, you eventually come to a point where you face off against the other two of her henchmen at the same time. Now, one of them tries to kill the other one for trying to kill you. And then that one kills the one who's trying to kill you. And the end result is all three of her henchmen are dead. Then you make your way into the pyramid proper, and you fight your way through the creatures that are being born from what looks like egg sacs all over the walls. eventually making your way to the top where the Scion is, powering all of this insanity. And Natalie tries to convince you to turn to the dark side and become her partner in whatever the hell it is she's trying to do. Personally, I wouldn't believe a word that came out of that woman's mouth, but that's just me. And Laura, rather than agreeing to become part of her ruling power, whatever, shoots the Scion, damaging it at the very least, if not destroying it. And then you end up throwing Natalie down into the lava, thinking that will be the end of her, but soon to find out it's not, because she comes back in a red hot form, and you fight her again. And even in that battle, you still don't kill her, but at the very least she gets pinned underneath a pillar that falls on top of her, and you make your way out of the pyramid proper, jump into the ocean, swim your way to her boat, and sail off into the sunset. And that's the end of the game. So you can see it's not a bad game. I mean, and it, for the most part, follows the exact same story as the first game does. It takes a couple of liberties here and there with different things, but it really does tell the story, at least the same story that the first one did. So yeah, Tomb Raider Anniversary. It's not a bad game. I liked it. I thought it was a well done remake of the first one, even though it was a lot shorter and easier than the first one. But nonetheless, I think they did a great job with the graphics and keeping with the original storyline. So I guess I'll call that my rant for the day. I hope that you enjoy the rest of yours. If you could hit the like, subscribe, rumble, follow buttons, all that does help. And I will talk to you later.